Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a recent Criterion release the last week in June. I just picked up in the Criterion half-priced Barnes & Noble sale. It's a Blu-ray upgrade that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. It's Sam Fuller directed Pickup on South Street, and it's Richard Widmark, Gene Peters, Thelma Ritter in one of her greatest roles for which she was nominated for an Academy Award. She was nominated, I think, quite a few times, 6 times, maybe perhaps. But she never won one, but neither did Alfred Hitchcock. And it's a film from that Fuller made for Darryl Zanuck as part of his 20th Century Fox contract. Fuller and Zanuck got along great together. Zanuck had a story that he thought was perfect for Fuller. He didn't really like it, but he took some of the basic ideas and developed some ideas that he had from the time when he was a journalist, and he was a teenage journalist back in New York City when he was growing up. And this is really a Sam Fuller lean, mean kind of movie. It's lean because Fuller, as always, his style was very punchy, journalistic. You grab the viewer in the opening scene, which he does here. Richard Widmark playing a pickpocket, a cannon in the argot lingo of the New York City that Fuller grew up with, which was what pickpockets were called in those days. And he spots Gene Peters on a very crowded subway car, and we watch him as he very artfully takes her purse out of her pocketbook, using a very specific style unique to his talents. As it turns out, within this purse is a microfilm that contains a formula that a group of communist spies are trying to obtain. Gene Peters is playing the courier. She's unwittingly, she doesn't know that this is all part of a Red plot. In 1953, the Red Scare was in full bloom, and this movie's kind of unique, and it does not take although certainly the subject matter was very topical. Fuller is rather apolitical. Of course, in real life, he was liberal, as was Richard Widmark. But there's no patriotic messages here. J. Edgar Hoover couldn't stand the film. He thought it was un-American. Fuller had served in World War II and was injured. The big red one he served in. But he didn't. He thought patriotism was the last resort of tyrants. Going back to Ben Franklin, he says it in he uses that quote in one of the interviews in the extras. So he runs counter to what Hollywood was putting out then, which was to accentuate the Red Scare and how we have to ferret out all these communists in our midst. And his criminals really don't care about I don't really care about communism as a sort of a political stance. It's Thelma Ritter, who plays a informer. She says, I don't really know anything about communists. I know I don't like them," which was pretty much the feeling that a lot of Americans had in the early 1950s. And so as Widmark picks, he doesn't know what's on this microfilm either. Gene Peters tries to get it through the knowledge that Thelma Ritter's character has as a professional informer. She knows when they describe the technique that was used to the FBI, who had been following. The opening scene is really brilliant on the subway car because it's dialogue free. You get a real sense of what, if you've ever been on a subway car in New York City, what it actually feels like. And we see people watching him do this because they're watching Gene Peters, because she has been under surveillance as being part of this communist group, and they're hoping that she will lead him to Mr. Big, the man responsible for the whole spy ring. So as the film progresses, and Widmark gets deeper and deeper. And again, even when he finds out that this is a communist plot, he's thinking, "Oh, big score! You know, I can get $25,000 from to return to return the microfilm." Once he finds out that it is actually a formula, he has no morality in that sense at all. So as I said, it's a lean Sam Fuller movie machine because it just moves forward and forward. It's only 80 minutes, and boy, Sam Fuller could sure pack a whole lot of stuff in 80 minutes, a whole lot of emotions and locations. There are some location shots he wanted to make it. He was very impressed by neorealism. He was working on the 20th Century Fox backlot, but there was no way they would be able to afford to go out on location, so he used some drawings from New York, especially where Richard Widmark lives. He lives on sort of this kind of like barge, houseboat type shack, and the movie is full of confined spaces. And the mean part is that all these characters, they're not nice people. It's amazing that Fuller was able to get this past Daryl Zanuck. Now Zanuck, as I said before, really liked Sam Fuller, and as a writer, as a person, they were friends together. He stuck by him when there were objections to the screenplay and the way the film turned out. And in France, in the United States, it offended the right wing, and in France, where the Communist Party was very powerful, and also in newspapers, they changed it all around from a communist plot to a drug deal because they were afraid of offending the communists in France. So you can see how Fuller is really. He's really traveling down his own road as it comes to politics. And he's always said he was against violence, but of course violence is a part of life, so he has to show it. And I got to say, it's a bit tough to watch Dean Peters get beaten about in this film because, in modern times, but it's probably is true to life to what this character, she'd been a streetwalker, and she got involved with this kind of petty criminal who really isn't a communist, and he's the one that's setting up the deal for which she is being used as a courier. In the extras, Fuller, but before I get to that, Zanuck asked Fuller, because he really liked this whole idea of having all these characters that are unlikable, as the main protagonist, even Thelma Ritter, and obviously we love Thelma Ritter, and this is one of her great Apple Annie kind of characterizations. But she too is not. I don't like the communists, but there's no political bent to any of this. It's and she informs on everybody. That's her job, and Richard Widmark has no problem with her informing on him to the police. They get along together. Did you get enough money? There's honor among thieves. And so Zanuck asked Fuller, "Why? Who do we root for here?" And Fuller said, "We root for everybody, all three of them, Dean Peters and Widmark and Thelma Ritter." And Thelma Ritter has a great scene at the end of the film that is probably one of her most iconic scenes in her many film roles in the 1950s. So in the extras, we get a interview with Fuller that was done by Richard Schickel. It's one of those good interviews where we don't actually see Schickel, and we just see Fuller's responses to the questions that he's being asked. Fuller is the kind of guy that he believes he knows what the real deal is in life. He understands it all. He cuts through the BS. His films show people as they really are. I've never totally bought into that because I think some of those films, they're so much on a pulpish level, And it's really that pulpist level that is really interesting. I don't find much in Pickup on South Street as far as verisimilitude goes to be very convincing, but the emotional punch, as a word I used before, is very powerful, very compelling, and what's truly remarkable about Fuller, or what makes him so compelling as a film director, is that he had such passion, and all that passion for his characters, for their situations, really comes through well. And there's another extra with Fuller in an old French. It's only about 10 minutes long, where he talks about the opening shot. And Fuller's always talking about it, telling the story through the pictures, through visually. And it is a great scene where Gene Peters being followed into and this they used a real location, entranceway to a office building, and it's when Gene Peters discovers that her microfilm has been filched, and probably by some pickpocket. And it had a very tricky camera move in it that Fuller is really proud of and talks about in that short French documentary. There is a booklet, and the booklet includes an excerpt from Fuller's autobiography, where he talks about the making of the film, how he picked Gene Peters. That was interesting because there was a number of much more famous actresses, including Marilyn Monroe, that wanted to play the Gene Peters role in Pickup on South Street. He didn't want a glamorous star. Gene Peters came by the office one day when he was rehearsing, and they had cast the whole film except for her role, and Fuller was taken with her. The only thing she asked for was that she would be allowed to rehearse, because she was playing with Thelma Ritter and Richard Widmark, very experienced actors, and she didn't feel that she didn't want to be intimidated by them. So Fuller had her come early in the morning. He would spend 3-4 hours for about a week working with her, rehearsing with her, and she had a chauffeur, a man who drove her to his bungalow in the studio lot, and would wait for her and then take her away. And Fuller found out later, Richard Widmark said, that's Howard Hughes, and Howard Hughes is taking her and waiting for her and taking her home. And it was, at that time, it was a big secret, their relationship, Howard Hughes and Gene Peters. But Gene Peters, a year or two later, did marry Howard Hughes and was married for him for quite a few years. Fuller and Widmark had a little bit of problem getting along with each other in the very beginning, but in the end they got along great, and he went on. Their next film was Hell and High Water that they made together. And so there's also a Martin Scorsese essay in this. It has some really great pictures. It's Widmark and Gene Peters. And then also a essay by Luc Santé. And all of this, I believe, was in the DVD. The spine number of this is 224. So it was a DVD from quite a few years ago. This is basically a Blu-ray upgrade, and they really haven't added much. And even the artwork on the inside, there's just a blank gray. But the one extra that they did add was a video interview with Imogen Sarah Smith, and it's about 30 minutes long, and it's just fantastic. There's no commentary on this movie, and I guess Imogen Sarah Smith does not do commentaries. And I need to plug her book, because if you're a film noir fan, you need to get In Lonely Places, Film Noir Beyond the City. Of course, this is a city film noir, Pickup on South Street. But she goes very deeply into the careers of Widmark, Peters, and Thelma Ritter, into Fuller's career and how Pickup on South Street fits into his career. Again, it's I wish she would do commentaries, because this is 30 minutes and the movie's only 80 minutes, but another 50 minutes of her talking about Pickup on South Street would have been terrific. So I would have hoped for a little bit more of an upgrade, but at least we get this 30-minute excerpt. Pickup on South Street, again, this is a movie that, if nothing else, is definitely going to keep you entertained. Okay, so that's my video on the first of the movies that I picked up at Criterion Barnes & Noble sale. I haven't yet done, I still have more to get, and I'm going to wait till I get the entirety of my pickups from that sale. But I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it was like 80 minutes just flew by with some great visuals, and as Sam Fuller would say, packed with emotion. Okay, you guys take care, and now we'll catch you next time.